So I'm going to be honest, I don't actually have a background in criminology, and I really wish that I studied law at uni. But I grew up in a rural Waikato town. My hometown, I'm talking about it all the time. It's definitely in competition with Wellington for the places in Aotearoa that I talk about the most. My hometown, Tuparoa, it is a real contradiction. It's a place that breeds both brilliance and brokenness. Ironically, it's the town where the richest man in Aotearoa comes from, and it's a place that has created unmatched sporting brilliance when it comes to all the different sports, men's and women's sports. But unfortunately, it is also a place where horrifying crimes and child abuse takes place. It's a coin flip of a town. Heads, you're brilliant and you're successful, and tails, you fall through the cracks. It was painfully obvious to me, even as a kid, that there were two pathways for us. Some lucky kids had the tools and the ability to turn their gifts into something great, and some other kids only had a few options available to join a gang or end up in jail. I found it hard to conceive of the fact that the kid that I went to school with at primary could be capable of committing manslaughter. I found it hard to see how people that I went to high school with could be capable or would end up in jail on drug charges. But then I looked back at how they couldn't focus in class. They were always drawing the ire of our teachers. The teachers wouldn't get off of their backs. They would come to school without proper uniform. They would be quick to have an angry, violent outburst at even the smallest confrontation. And it feels like no surprise that they ended up exactly where they did. I still can't imagine what their home lives would have been like on top of all of that. And I can see how growing up like this would push you towards joining a gang. A group of people with similar experience who could act as family, no matter how violent and dysfunctional. Now as an adult, I understand why. Undiagnosed attention disorders and neurodiversity, serious learning difficulties, coming to school hungry and tired, having no proper adult role models in your lives. That's all too much for one child to carry on their own. And this is when the impulsive, thrill-seeking decisions are made, with no real regard for the consequences that it would set one's life journey on. And that's not to say everybody turns out that way. They're just more likely to live a life of pain, falling into a pattern of seeing violence, coercion, and manipulation as normal. From the cradle to the grave, a lifetime of misery and wasted human potential. For some, the choices they are given in life are extremely limited, alongside their ability to mess up, as we all do in our lives at some point or another. I've seen colleagues in Parliament make the same mistakes that face nowhere near the level of reprimand that these young children in rangatahi are facing, because some can afford good lawyers and opportunities to turn their lives around, and others pass go straight to jail. Prisons are not the places we are led to believe that they are. In the past year alone, I have spent time in 13 prisons. What I have seen for myself is that prisons are not a place where bad people go to be admonished and rehabilitated. They are a place where people can become better criminals. They can get better connections. They can get fitter and stronger. They are taught that violence and intimidation are tools that you can use to get what you want in life. And perhaps most devastatingly, I have seen that successful rehabilitation in prisons is virtually non-existent. How could education or meaningful rehabilitation be possible in an environment where you are constantly on edge and where any portrayal of weakness or vulnerability puts you in very real danger? The system inevitably lets down those who have been harmed, and it lets down those who need serious help. In the last month, the government has announced hefty fines and longer prison sentences for a raft of existing crimes like shoplifting or assaulting a first responder. These are already crimes, but what the government is saying in prescribing sentences for these acts is that they don't trust judges to sentence correctly. Perhaps the reason that judges have resorted to imprisonment less and less is because they continue to see the same people before them and nothing ever improves. Prison only serves to escalate the intensity and the viciousness of their actions. But for the government, it's just longer sentences and more prisons. And for the life of me, I've been looking for some small indication that we might be interested in preventing harm from happening in the first place, but have come up time and time again empty-handed. Sadly, we are more interested in the police car at the bottom of the cliff, a system based on revenge that unfortunately creates future victims when the opportunity is missed to seriously intervene in someone's life trajectory. Today, it seems like we're primed for fear. We binge watch true crime and we cry out for the guillotine. Fear is one of our most visceral emotions, and politicians on both sides of the house know it. They and the media tell us who and what we should be afraid of. Interestingly, though, most people feel safe in their own neighbourhoods. They're worried about crime elsewhere, somewhere else that they're told by the media exists out there. We are concerned about and we legislate against the stranger in a dark alleyway, ignoring the facts that a lot of violence that happens in our country is between intimate partners and people that we already know. We have a distorted sense of fear, and it is informed by people that hold power. And it means that we do ourselves a disservice by not being aware of what to advocate for that will actually keep us safe. We are kept in a state of fear, and fear wins votes. Once upon a time, interracial marriage was a crime. Woman voting was a crime. Being gay was a crime. And until recently, abortion was a crime. Yet serious harm that devastate and kill people, like literal genocide, tax evasion, wage theft, air and water pollution are all permitted in this system because it is more profitable to break the law and pay the fine while scooping up record profits. That's why the new shoplifting laws were announced in a supermarket, the same supermarket that has made record profits from their predatory price gouging from people who cannot afford to fill the fridge. That's why Fonterra can still demand sky-high prices from people whose rivers they pollute. Whether it's tough on crime or soft on crime, what is clear is that the powerful define crime to suit their own interests. It costs us to lock people up and throw away the key. It costs $150,000 per year per person, in fact. We throw billions of your hard-earned dollars into a black hole. Compare that to the education budget, the housing budget, the health budget, areas that, unlike prisons, are actually proven to reduce crime. Today, under this government, money for punishment is applauded, and money for school lunches and hospital upgrades are seen and looked at disapprovingly as if it were going to waste. We would rather have the spectacle of revenge against people we don't even know over the future of children we don't even know. We perceive everything as a personal failing rather than plugging up the cracks in our man-made system, and it is manifestly unjust. So what are the alternatives and what can we do about it? Well, First, we can listen to these people who are going to talk to us tonight. We can also recognise that poverty and inequality create environments where crime flourishes. We must demand nothing short of redistributive justice. To be completely clear, that means no $1 million subsidies for landlords and tobacco companies and gas exploration. That means more money into school classrooms and hospitals. That means investing in big infrastructure projects that create jobs and stimulate the economy and improve the quality of all of our lives. It's about making sure that people feel hope in many different pathways that they have on offer in life as the strongest antidote to a life of crime that one might turn to out of desperation. Second, we have to challenge institutions around law and order and have these conversations with those closest to us, our friends and our family. We must invest in preventative kaupapa that seek to unpack and unlearn the cultures, the attitudes and the beliefs that underpin violence against women and violence against minority groups. We must challenge the outsized influence that harmful industries like big alcohol and big gambling have in our communities. We can invest in rehabilitation programs and even simple programs like parenting courses or numeracy and literacy classes, things that people should be able to access in their communities and not from a prison cell. We must keep firearms out of our communities, and we must never be complicit or active conspirators in acts of genocide. Finally, we have to keep an eye on the creep of privatisation into our justice system. Our justice system was formed in this country to advance colonisation. Nowadays, in addition to doing that, it is centred around protecting private property and allowing the unfettered concentration of wealth. If we don't keep an eye on that, we will end up with a system that profits off of misery and requires us to just keep filling up prison beds in order to satisfy the security and surveillance economy. It is about building back up from the hopelessness and misery that the punishment bureaucracy drills into our psyches. Look at us all here this evening. We have literally filled up this room. I believe that there is so much power in this room. And now we just have to take this outside of Wellington and take it into the regions. But seriously, this room, there is so much power in this room. And that's why I want to ask you tonight, there is a form on your chair that has the ability to sign up and to get involved. Not even necessarily just with the Greens, but also around justice kaupapa, around wealth taxes and understanding the way that our economic system works. There are so many kaupapa that we can join in on, and signing up to that form will help us to build the power we need to really challenge these narratives. But thank you for coming tonight and for being so generous with your time and your energy. I want to say a big thank you to our speakers, who I'll pass over to now. And I believe in us and our collective ability to truly be tough on crime. Kia ora.